Hi guys, how's it going? So in today's video, we're going to be looking at flush doors that are flush to the wall. We're also going to be looking at something that was inspired by hopefully one of my subscribers called Null. We're looking at changes to the pressure plate, and probably my favorite, this new discovery is a new concealed button and door combo. So without further ado, we'll get into the video. So basically guys, when I did my piston doors for beginners, a lot of people seem to love this door over here, which is kind of like a concealed door because it's flush with the wall. And the only issue that you have with this really is that you have a button there. So I thought in this video today, we'd look at different kind of styles and ways to conceal your door so it's hidden flush with the wall. So jump into our truck and zoom over here. What we've got over here is a couple of things set up for us. So the first two are very simply the standard door with a button. And obviously the very first one is exactly the same. So this is a 2-piston system that runs off of 2 pistons and literally no other logic. It's just 2 pistons on the button. And how this works is just quite simple really. The pistons are trying to push or pull, depends on which way you go, at the same time. So at the push of the button, this piston here is trying to pull the door back. And this piston here is trying to like open the door completely. So the first piston pulls the door back and then the second one pulls it across completely. Now, we don't need any real logic in this because ultimately what you're trying to do is this long piston is trying to pull back at exactly the same time that this little one's trying to pull back. But obviously this piston isn't going to be able to close down because the block of the wall is rubbing up against it. So by using the way that pistons work, you don't need any logic because this literally sorts itself out. So when it comes to closing, it's the exact same system. The short piston here is trying to push, but obviously these blocks can't go anywhere. So this one is also trying to extend. So when this is fully extended, then these bricks will pop into the hole, which gives us this nice flush door, and it only takes 2 pistons. Now, what about the other side to that? What about if you didn't want to use pistons, but you wanted to use bearings, right? Well, you can also do that pretty simply, and that's what we've got here. So it's a bearing setup that enables us to click a switch, activate a controller, and spin some bearings. It's really quite simple. Again, there is no logic involved. It's just a switch and some bearings. And what we've got this set up is the bearings are set back a little bit. So the bearings here, but the first part of the door is like here. I'll just spray it for you so we can see. So here's our door. With our bearings. Our bearing is just to the left of this one. So that's our bearing there. Okay. And what that means is that enables us to rotate so that when the door is open, it doesn't overhang. So you see how it's like, it's flush here. So if I wanted to, I could build this block here. So that's why the bearing is there. If you put the bearing like right here, because you have to have a block there and then your door there. If that was to open with the bearing that close to the door, when the door is open, it would sit here. So you'd kind of have that kind of edge to the door. So just move that bearing back a block. So you see it here, look. So that's where the bearing is. So it would be bearing, block there onto the door. So that when that swings open, the bearing is there and the door sits there, leaving us nice and flush with the wall so you don't have to worry about it. Now there is one thing that I have noticed when I was kind of doing this build, and it's really confusing. I couldn't work out why it was. But the door has to be that kind of length. What I mean by that is if I put this here and take this off here and try and close the door, it jams. And I don't know why it jams. So it's something to do probably with rotational forces or something. So the door has to be quite a wide door. It has to be a minimum of, what's that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Has to be sort of a minimum of 5. But now it closes perfectly. It doesn't catch or anything. So I don't know why it's like that. But if we had our doors of 4 and yeah, that extra block being part of the wall, for whatever reason, bit of friction, bit of overlapping, it catches. I personally would have thought it had done the exact same thing here, but it doesn't, and I don't know why. So you can run it off of one bearing. I will show you this. You don't need 2 bearings at all. You can run it off of 1 bearing and you'll still achieve the same thing. Door opens, doors closed. It's fine. That same problem will occur whether you run it off of 1 bearing or 2 bearings, so I don't really know what to say or suggest there. But yes, that's how to run a flush door off of, you know, a bearing and a piston. Now we're going to get interesting. So this is our pressure plate. Now, thanks to Null, as he wishes to be called, he's been messing around with the idea and he's come up with a new thing. Now, if you remember with mine, I had a sensor set up over this side and it activated a piston so that it reset the whole plate so it's back where it is. Well, this is a lot better. This is so much simpler. We only have 1 sensor. Now, I've got this set up just on sensors and pistons, so when the sensor is activated, the piston's open. As soon as the sensor's deactivated, those pistons shut. You can run logic for if you really want to, but I think this is the most simplest form this pressure plate can be. And it's really, really easy. It's like a self-resetting pressure plate. And if it works, because sometimes it can be a bit tricky. Here we go. So we come down, and we're on the end, and then we can just walk through. And obviously, like I said before, the plate will automatically reset, and the sensor will only pick up once it's, you know, activated. Obviously, if I stand up, it doesn't activate. So you can rush through, or you can set up a load of logic to everything else. Now, how this now works is quite brilliant, in my opinion. So what Null suggested to do was sort of offset the length. So what we've got here is the bearings represent where the bearing is, and obviously the glass represents how many blocks past the bearing we've got. So the part that we activate is 3 blocks past the bearings, and the other side is 2 blocks past the bearings. Now, what Null recommended was use a counterweight to balance the length. So obviously this side is longer, which means the short side has to be heavier in order to keep it stable. So that's all we've done. So what I found when using the wood was I needed to add, like, as you see underneath, this is double. So this is actually, it's a 3x2 kind of depth, if you like. 3 that way, 2 that way. So if I show you, it'd be easier. You see how it's staged like that? So obviously use the same material to counter the balance. Heavier material obviously swings around. But yeah, underside here. So where the bearing is, it's all flat. And then as soon as you're past the bearings, you just have to toy with the weight. Different materials are going to require different weights. So as you saw with the wood, obviously I had it completely blocked out with wood. But as you saw when I put a brick on it, yeah, so even 2 bricks is too heavy. So trying to get that the right balance will become very material dependent. But it is easy to do. You just counter the length with a bit of extra weight, and then you get this self-resetting pressure plate. You just don't need any pistons or anything to reset it. So massive, massive thanks to Null for that. And also a massive thanks to Null for this idea as well. I didn't even consider this idea. But this is, well, I guess you could call it a pressure plate. It's completely hidden. There's no button. There's no obvious join in the wall or nothing. I'm going to show you this with the mallet. There you go. How simple is that? It's so sick. It's so easy. It's so simple. I'll show you guys how to build it in a minute. The very basics of it and what you need. But I think that's awesome. And over here we have, it's the same thing. Same design. Works in the same way. But I'm going to show you something. And I think why I like this. I think it's a pretty cool idea. But also why it might go against us if they've got robots and stuff. And it's simple. We can just walk. And as you're walking forwards, the weight of our character walking forwards is enough to activate this door. So if you have like hidden rooms or something, if you build like a big base or, you know, like a complex tunnel system or something like that, and you put a wall at the end of somewhere and people are like, ah, well, there's nothing here. And you yourself know, if you just walk to that wall, boom, you can open it and you can just carry on walking right through. And I think this is the simplest thing ever. There's a little bit of logic here because we're looking at sensors. Obviously, we want to turn that sensor on. So these are pretty easy to build, really, and all you're going to need is, obviously, you're going to need a wall, and you're going to want a doorway. So we're going to be looking at a kind of, boom, this kind of doorway. Now, what I find is you might need 2 suspension springs for this. The reason being, one isn't strong enough, or it becomes too strong. Is the only way to explain it. So I'll show you how to build the door. You're going to need this, and then we're going to need the door, obviously, and our door will be something like this. So this is our door here. And then what we're going to need is this kind of thing, so that our suspension is mounted this way up. So then just check that everything is all welded together. So there we go. So that's a suspension mounted together. Now, how we're going to mount this, I'm going to do this on a bearing. So we need to come back 3. 1, 2, 3. There. So, come out 3. So we're here. And then up. So it's somewhere like that. We might need to just kind of double check this when we try and weld it. Obviously try and get the height right. That's basically it. So then you just literally weld that on top of there. And that is our door. So that is our door. Then you're going to need a couple of things, okay? So then we're going to need a sensor. And what that's going to do is going to pick up when our door is pressed. Okay, and then for me, I used a memory bit. And a timer. And a controller. Obviously, to control the bearing. So, controller to bearing. And the good old or nor loop. So, sensor to this side, and this side will activate this. So we need the output to come from the OR. So we go to the timer and to the controller. And then from the timer, we go to this second OR down here. This timer is our cooldown for a door. So basically what happens is as soon as that sensor is triggered, this activates, boom, boom, and the door will open. Obviously the timer is counting down. When that timer reaches 0, it will reset this and our door will close. So, open this by 90. Whack this up to full speed. We'll put the sensor on sound just in case we need to hear anything. Picks it up. There you go. It's as simple as that. As soon as that door is closed, we've still got to wait just for that just to trickle through before we can open it again. So if we're in a rush, for example, as soon as this closes, we try and open it. It won't open because the timer has still got some juice in it. But that is the simplicity of it. I absolutely love it. And obviously, you can mount your suspension part because that's the important bit. This is the important bit right here. You can mount this however you like. So obviously, you saw, for me, I had one mounted sideways on a bearing, so it opened. But I also had one mounted on bearings at the top so that it'd swing up. Nothing too stressful, nice and easy. Massive shout out to Null for putting this my way. I think this is absolutely fantastic. But I do like these new ones. I think these are awesome. Just simply because you can run at them. But you can even walk at them. You don't have to run. So I'll just be walking. Boom. Door opens. Away we go. Anyway guys, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. I shall catch you guys in a bit.